Hey guys, today we are going to review Logan in this channel. I'm going to review it in English because I think it's a little bit better in the case of this movie. Logan is the story of the mutant called Wolverine that we have all known and loved from the X-Men film series portrayed by Hugh Jackman. And in this movie it's the end of Logan, and that's not a spoiler alert because everyone knew that Hugh Jackman had signed on his last movie. He had announced it long ago and he hasn't backed down from that, so this is the last time we will see Hugh Jackman as Logan. Possibly a new Wolverine will be done in the future, but I don't think it will be done too soon because Hugh Jackman is Logan and no one really wants to change that. So the movie is about him in the future, like more than 10 years in the future, 12 years in the future, and he finds out basically that there's a new mutant in the world and that he has to save her in order to preserve mutant kind and avoid a mass extinction of the species basically. So yeah, I'm going to be in spoiler territory here, so spoiler alert. And yeah, the first big spoiler that's not a spoiler is the death of Wolverine. Of course, when Hugh Jackman said that this is going to be his last movie, we all knew that meant that something definitive was going to happen to the character. It doesn't happen exactly as in the comic books, I think. I mean, I never read Old Man Logan, on which this movie is based on, which happens in the future and with kind of the same characters. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty tragic and it's pretty sad, but it's hopeful at the same time because first of all, the sad thing is that you learn that he never learned anything from his earlier days in the X-Men. So it's kind of funny because he has always been the tough one and difficult one, if you will, and he always seems to learn something at the end of each X-Men movie. And in this movie you realize that he didn't learn anything and that he being alone basically, it has been very tragic to him. He's not entirely alone. He has to take care of Professor Charles Xavier, who is going through something very rough because he apparently has some kind of disease basically that disables him from using his powers as he used to. So that's pretty dangerous because his mind is one of the most powerful minds in the world, the most powerful apparently, so that's not good. He has like seizures, and both times he has seizures it's pretty visible that he could be a weapon. I mean, really dangerous. So it's really sad in that note. Of course, one of the most difficult things about these movies is the fact that the timeline is all fucked up basically because the events in Days of Future Past change everything. So we have like the normal X-Men line, which would be X-Men X2 and X-Men The Last Stand, and then we have the line that happened after Days of Future Past, which is X-Men Apocalypse, and then we have Deadpool, and then we have the Wolverine movies. So it's all a little bit insane. I mean, the Wolverine movies are on the same line that Days of Future Past and First Class and all that. It's in the same line. But then this movie, for example, Logan, is in the future, so we don't really know which future, if the future of the new future that Days of Future Past created or the older I mean, it's really confusing and nobody really knows, and I think Deadpool makes fun of that. So don't try to understand the timeline in Fox Marvel movies because it's really messed up. No one really knows, and with 3 new movies slated to appear in 2018, it's going to be a little more complicated even. We have New Mutants, we have Deadpool 2 of course, and we will have by the end of 2018 Dark Phoenix, which is apparently a new one in the until now trilogy of new X-Men movies. So, and we don't know who's going to appear in that, so that's interesting. Of course, not Hugh Jackman. And not only Hugh Jackman is leaving the X-Men universe. Apparently, Patrick Stewart is leaving too, which is very sad. The death of Professor X is very, very tragic. I mean, it could have happened in many other ways, of course, but the way it happened is so sad because, spoiler alert again, it's basically Wolverine that kills him. Not Wolverine, the real one, but the clone. So it's really tragic to see Hugh Jackman stab Professor X. I mean, it's really, really awful. And Professor X doesn't have his X-Men anymore. So, and it is hinted, it's not fully explained, that he had a seizure. I mean, he had a disease apparently from early on, and he had a seizure in the school, apparently, and he killed some of his X-Men, or every X-Men apparently, except for Wolverine and maybe others that eventually died too. So it's pretty tragic. I mean, we don't know who he killed, or if someone survived, or and if someone survived, how they responded to that, because it was, I mean, it's tragic that the person that tried to help them was the one that decimated them basically. So that's very tragic. Another great addition actually to the X-Men universe is X-23, also called Laura. She's the child that basically she's the daughter of Hugh Jackman, of Wolverine, I mean, but she's not, I mean, not really his daughter, because she was made from his DNA. He didn't have sex with anyone in order to have her, but technically it's her daughter. And of course it's the new tinier version of Wolverine. She doesn't really have a name in the comic books. She's only X-23 because of the code that they put on her when she was made. I mean, X-24 is the actual clone, big ass clone that very difficult to kill in the movie. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting that they used a part Mexican actress and a part Mexican character, actually, because they clearly say that she was born in Mexico City, and she was carried across the border by a woman, a nurse that tried to help her. So it's really powerful, a really powerful message in this day and age, because with all happening about the wall and all those things, it's pretty daring that a movie just made a character that's an immigrant a central part of their world, because we know that X-23 is coming back sometime soon. Not in 2018. I don't think they will add her in any of those movies, but she will be in the future, and she could have a movie on her own, set in the future with other mutants, maybe with some of the kids that we saw. So that's very interesting. Talking about the movie itself, I really like the action sequences. Very realistic, very hard to take sometimes. I mean, when he stabbed the people through the head, it was really awful, and the sound, I mean, it's really well done. But it's another Wolverine, because we hadn't seen an R-rated Wolverine, and that's insane, because he's very R-rated, the character. I mean, he has knives on his hands, so it should have always been like that, but it wasn't. So it was very interesting to see the actual Wolverine, the real character, come alive. And Hugh Jackman does a great performance, I think. He always did, but this time it has so much like passion and sadness and drama, and it's a deep performance. I mean, it's not only a superhero movie, it's actually a drama movie. I mean, everything that happens in the movie is sad until the very last minute. I mean, there are many, like very few things are like happy in this movie. Only the fact that Laura is alive at the end is kind of, hope that's the hope of mutant kind. But aside from that, everything is very sad, and it goes downhill, and it's powerful. It's powerful stuff, and the fact that a comic book movie was able to reach that level is very satisfying, because most comic book movies try to do is that the spectacle, the show. They want to show visual effects and sounds, and these fantastic battles. But in this movie, we don't really see much of the powers. I mean, it's only sometimes the seizures of Professor X and the claws of Wolverine and X-23. And aside from that, we don't really see much. Maybe the children, but they don't really use their powers, which is kind of disappointing. But it's about a dramatic person. I mean, a person that has lived so many awful things and has to do one last thing to to redeem himself, basically. And if you think about it, he shouldn't have redeemed anyone or done anything like that, because he was a victim. He was taken and he was tested on, and he had to escape, and he forgot who he was. And thanks to Jean Grey, he was able to start rebuilding his life, but even then he didn't have a lot to go on. So I mean, it's a really tragic character if you think about it, and it's really amazing that this movie portrays it, his last adventure in such a light, because it's tragic. All his life has been tragic, so of course the way to his death will be tragic. I mean, that's it's really well done. I mean, James Mangold is the director of this movie. He had directed The Wolverine before, and he really does a great job. I mean, The Wolverine, I liked it. People hated it, apparently. I mean, I liked it, but of course it has nothing to do with this movie. This movie has depths that I hadn't seen in a comic book movie before. Everyone loved Deadpool, but Deadpool is kind of a comedy, you know? It's comedy with action, and this movie is action with drama, and like serious drama. We got what we saw in the trailers. The trailers for Logan were some of the best trailers released in 2016, easily, and it delivered. It certainly delivered. I mean, the photography, of course, is beautiful. I mean, visual effects, there are not that many, so I can't really say a lot. The sound work is really well done. The editing, of course, all the fights are just on point. I mean, there are not that many fights, but the fights that they have are really like, wow, they're really spectacularly done. The choreography in the fights, it's amazing. The story is really well woven, if you will. I have minor problems with the story, if you will, like for example, like at the end when they are like catching the children before they cross the Canadian border. I think it was a little bit weird that all these children didn't actively use their powers. I mean, only like a couple used their powers in order to defend themselves. The rest were like, oh, they got me. I mean, if you can ignite people on fire, I would use that for against everyone, and then run to Canada. I think it was a little bit weird, and people explain it like, oh, they're children, they don't really know how to use their powers. Well, Laura sure does know how to use her powers, so that didn't make any sense for me. But I really like all the story about the immigrant and the person that illegally crossed, and this hero that doesn't want to be the hero but has to be, and he has to sacrifice himself, and he really doesn't do it like, yeah, I'm a hero at the end. No, he always wanted to die. He's really tired of his life, so it's kind of deserving at the end, the way he dies. So I mean, it's really sad, but you're like, okay, he finally got to rest, because his life was extremely tragic, so at least he's going to have peace, maybe. And yeah, we are going to have X-23 in future X-Men movies, which is going to be great. We're going to have a woman Wolverine, which is very interesting. Maybe New Mutants, not the first New Mutants that they are going to do, maybe in a future one they will include her, or maybe in another X-Men movie or her own movie. We don't really know, but it's certain that Fox is not going to give rights to Marvel soon. I mean, they have a really great thing going on with all these movies. I really like the X-Men universe, and I really hope we get a lot of movies about the X-Men universe, and they don't need to go to Marvel or Disney or whatever, just leave it at that. So yeah, that's my review for Logan. I really love this movie and recommend it. It's one of the best comic book films I have recently watched, besides even more than Deadpool. I think it's much better than Deadpool, to be honest, and I really recommend you watching it. So this is my review of Logan. Please watch these 2 other videos in English and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. Goodbye, and sorry if the video is long. Goodbye.